Imagine for a moment that you wake up tomorrow and discover there's a global superpower you've never heard of in history class. A civilization that should have disappeared 500 years ago, but not only survived, it became one of the most influential forces on the planet today. Sounds impossible? Well, that's exactly what would have happened if the Aztec Empire had never fallen. Have you ever stopped to think what the world would be like if Hernan courts never managed to conquer Tenochtitlan? What if smallpox hadn't decimated millions of indigenous people? What if the Aztecs had resisted, and more than that, prospered to this day? The consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. We're talking about a world where glass pyramids would compete with skyscrapers, where modern medicine would merge with ancient knowledge of medicinal plants, and where one of the most powerful economies on the planet would be based on principles completely different from Western capitalism. Prepare to discover how this would affect global geopolitics in ways you'd never imagine. What would happen to the Americas in a completely shocking way? How religions and cultures would develop surprisingly, and the irreversible transformation this would cause in our understanding of civilization and progress. To understand this scenario, we need to go back to the year 1521. Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities in the world, with almost 300,000 inhabitants, larger than London or Paris at the time. The empire controlled millions of people and possessed advanced knowledge in astronomy, medicine, agriculture, and engineering. But then the Spanish arrived, bringing horses, firearms, and unknowingly devastating diseases. But what if things had been different? Our alternative world begins with a seemingly small change, but with monumental consequences. Imagine that the Aztecs developed resistance to European diseases more quickly, perhaps through earlier commercial contact with other civilizations, or simply by a fortuitous genetic mutation. Smallpox still kills, but it doesn't decimate 90% of the population as it did in our timeline. With their ranks not devastated by disease, Emperor Moctezuma II is never captured by the Spanish. In fact, he quickly learns about European tactics and does something brilliant. Instead of just resisting, he adapts. The Aztecs begin to capture Spanish horses and weapons, studying each piece of European technology with the same scientific dedication they use for their astronomical calendars. Can you imagine Aztec warriors on horseback, wearing armor that combines European steel with the sophisticated design of Aztec cotton armor? It's an image that completely redefines our idea of the encounter between civilizations. In 1525, 4 years after the date of the original conquest, the Aztecs not only repelled the Spanish, they absorbed them. Many conquistadors, isolated from their supply lines and impressed by the Aztec wealth and organization, simply switched sides. Cortes dies not as a conqueror, but as a prisoner of war, and his fate serves as an example for future European expeditions. But here comes the first great twist. The Aztecs aren't content to just defend themselves. With their new hybrid technology, they begin a maritime expansion of their own. In 1530, Aztec ships, with European techniques but decorated with feathered serpents and solar symbols, arrive in the Philippines and establish direct contact with Asia, completely bypassing Spanish commercial dominance. Fast forward to the 21st century, the Aztec Empire, now officially called the Mexican Confederation, is one of the 5 global superpowers, along with the United States, China, the European Union, and Russia. But its capital, New Tenochtitlan, is like no other city in the world. Picture this: skyscrapers in the shape of step pyramids, with hanging gardens on each level, external elevators decorated like feathered serpents, and a public transport system based on modern canals that echo the ancient Aztec canals. The city is home to 15 million people and is considered one of the most important financial centers in America. The Mexican economy developed something unique in the world: altruism, a system that combines private enterprise with ancestral community responsibility. Imagine corporations where profits are automatically redistributed to local communities, where business decisions go through councils that include not only shareholders, but representatives from each affected neighborhood. Have you ever stopped to think what it would be like to work in a company where your individual success is directly linked to the well-being of your community? Where polluting the environment isn't just illegal, but considered an offense to the gods that can result in complete social ostracism. Mexica Technology focus obsessively on harmony with nature. They lead the world in vertical agriculture, biotechnology based on native plants, and solar energy, an obvious choice for a culture that always worshiped the sun. Their buildings not only capture solar energy, but are designed to follow the sun's movement throughout the day. In medicine, they revolutionized the world by combining ancestral plant knowledge with modern technology. Mexica hospitals use both MRI scans and herbal preparations that their ancestors knew 1,000 years ago. The result? They have one of the highest life expectancies in the world and lead research in natural medicines. But perhaps the most impressive is the educational system. Every Mexican child learns at least 4 languages: Nahuatl, the original language, Spanish, English, and an Asian language. They also study astronomy from an early age, not as a curiosity, but as a practical science for agriculture and navigation. If you're finding this journey through alternative history as fascinating as we are, smash the like button so we can continue unraveling these incredible scenarios. Now, prepare for the next shock: how this Mexico world would completely transform the geopolitics of the Americas. With the Aztecs surviving, the map of the Americas would be completely different. Mexico never lost territory to the United States. In fact, the opposite happened. The Mexica Confederation extends from present-day Panama to what we know as Nevada and California. Los Angeles does not exist. In its place is Cipacli, a Mexican metropolis of 8 million inhabitants that is the largest Pacific port in the Americas. Hollywood never existed. The World Entertainment Center is in Tlatelolco, where Mexican production companies create films that combine cutting-edge technology with ancient mythology, exporting their culture to the entire world. Can you imagine watching a superhero movie where the protagonist invokes the power of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, to fly through pyramid-shaped skyscrapers? This is mainstream entertainment in this alternative world. Further south, history also changed drastically. Without the complete Spanish domination, other indigenous empires also resisted better. The Inca Empire, inspired by Mexico's success, managed to maintain its independence in the Andes. South America is divided between mestizo nations that maintain strong indigenous cultures and the European colonial territories on the Atlantic coast. Brazil is still Brazilian, but its western border ends at the Madeira River. Everything beyond that is territory of an Inca-Amazonian confederation that protects the forest with satellite monitoring technology and defense systems that make NATO seem antiquated. The geopolitical tensions are fascinating. The United States, prevented from its westward expansion, became a more Atlanticist power focused on Europe and Africa. The space race? It happened between the US, USSR, and Mexican Confederation. Imagine rockets decorated with Aztec symbols landing on the moon in 1969, planting a flag with an eagle on a cactus next to the American and Soviet flags. The Cold War had 3 sides. The Mexican Confederation developed a third ideological way, neither capitalist nor communist, but based on Tequio traditional community work adapted for the modern world. They supported indigenous independence movements around the world, from Australian Aborigines to the Sami of Scandinavia. Here comes another shocking twist. The United Nations has a rotating headquarters: New York, Geneva, and New Tenochtitlan. Every 10 years, the headquarters changes. And when it's in the Mexica capital, all important meetings happen in glass pyramids with hanging gardens, where diplomats from all over the world learn about consensus through ancestral Mexica methods. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this alternative world is how religions evolved. Catholicism reached Mexica lands, but not as a conquering force, as just another spiritual option. The result is a unique religious synthesis in the world. Imagine churches where Jesus Christ is portrayed as an aspect of Quetzalcoatl, where masses include copal incense, and where the Christian calendar merges with the Mexican ritual calendar of 260 days. It's not forced syncretism, it's a natural evolution of two traditions that met on equal terms. The Vatican had to completely adapt its theology. There's a Pope for the Americas, chosen from among Mexican clerics, who has equal authority to the Roman Pope on American theological matters. Ecumenical councils happen in both Rome and New Tenochtitlan. But perhaps the biggest cultural change is in the perception of time. Mexican culture never abandoned its cyclical view of history. For them, time isn't linear as for Westerners. Events repeat in patterns that can be studied and predicted. This created a unique approach to urban planning, economics, and even international relations. Mexican companies make strategic plans not for 5 or 10 years, but for 52 years, a complete cycle of the sacred calendar. They literally think in generations. Imagine a civilization that plants trees today, thinking about how they'll affect the lives of their great-grandchildren. That builds infrastructure thinking in centuries, not decades. Modern Mexican art is absolutely unique. They lead the world in interactive digital art, creating installations that respond to the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, as their ancestors did with architecture, but using 21st century technology. Museums in New Tenochtitlan are multi-sensory experiences where you not only see art, but live it through virtual reality that simulates altered states of consciousness traditionally achieved through rituals. Mexican fashion influences the entire world. Clothes that combine synthetic fibers with traditional cotton, jewelry that incorporates both gold and modern materials like titanium, and designs that reference both ancestral symbols and futuristic aesthetics. If these explorations of alternative timelines spark your imagination, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next journeys through worlds that could have existed. Let's now move on to our final conclusion about this Mexica scenario, which will leave you thinking for days. So, what have we learned about this world where the Aztec Empire survived? 3 fundamental lessons that change our perspective on civilization. First, progress has more than one form. While we associate development with individualism and competition, the Mexica proved that a highly technological society can be based on cooperation and community responsibility. They didn't reject modernity, they redefined it. Second, cultural diversity isn't just beautiful, it's functionally superior. In a world with multiple superpowers based on different philosophies, global problems like climate change and inequality were solved more quickly because there were more approaches being tested simultaneously. Third, and perhaps most important, the encounter between civilizations doesn't have to result in the destruction of one of them. When cultures meet on equal terms, the result is synthesis, not substitution. Imagine how many solutions to our current problems we lost when entire civilizations disappeared. This Mexico world shows us that our timeline, where one civilization dominates and imposes its vision on others, wasn't inevitable. It was just one possibility among many. Here's the question that will stick in your head. If the Aztecs had survived and prospered, maintaining their community values but adopting modern technology, would we not have solved problems like global warming and social inequality much sooner? Would a civilization that thought in cycles of 52 years not have been wiser about sustainability than our corporations that only think about the next quarter? Of all the twists we've explored, what aspect of this alternative Aztec world did you find most fascinatingly different? Or perhaps you have a completely different theory about how this scenario would unfold. Imagine if they had developed space technology based on their ancestral astronomical knowledge. Would we be colonizing Mars in glass pyramids? Share your ideas in the comments below, and let's continue this historical conversation that challenges our understanding of what it means to be civilized.